Okay, everybody, I gotta do a little intro to my video coming up. Alright, I'm 60, fixed to be 62 years old. One of my family traits is using the wrong words in what we're talking about. So I'm talking about how to get a license in my next video. This video is going to be following this intro here. And at one point, I referenced the website QRZ where you can take practice tests, and I call them code tests. I didn't mean to call them code tests. They have practice, multiple choice written tests for each class of license on the QRZ page. So when I was calling them code tests, that ain't what I'm talking about. I just meant it. I'm old, and my family, I don't know, it's a trait I guess I've inherited, because everybody in my family is bad about saying or calling something what it ain't. So I just wanted to clarify that. I'm not referring to a CW test. I'm referring to the multiple choice written test like you would take to take your license. And a point I don't think I made very clear in there, when you go take your license, say you want to take technician, and you pay the license fee to the VE to take the technician license, and you pass it, you go ahead and take general while you're there and don't have to pay another fee. That's always been a custom, or maybe a rule, but I've always thought it was just a custom or a rule one, that once you pay one license fee, as long as you're passing the test, you can just keep testing right on up. So think about it. Even if you don't think you're ready, go ahead and take the test. That's what I did. When I passed my general, the guy told me, hey, you might as well take extra while you're here. I said, well, I hadn't studied for it. He said, well, it ain't going to hurt nothing. You'll know what the test is like, and you might get lucky. So I did it. I didn't pass it, but I knew what the test was going to be on. Went back and done some studying. So anyway, I just wanted to clarify this video y'all fixing to watch. Remember, when I call it a code test, I'm talking about the written multiple choice test. Thank y'all. Appreciate everybody watching. KB5MIQ, Big Boy. Good afternoon, everybody. It's KB5MIQ, Big Boy. Hope everybody's having a good New Year's week. Got Ham Radio Cat up here pestering me. Aaron, he ought to be able to pop up here in just a minute, buddy. Anyway, had some questions for another video, and actually run into a friend of mine I never did know was really interested in ham radio. He's an old CBer from way back. Has been watching our videos and asked me a few questions about licensing. And HKV and DLX and I talked about doing a video on different types of ham licensing and ways to approach getting them. So, David, I hope you want to enjoy this. We're gonna talk about ham licensing today, and I'm gonna use strictly ARRL info. There's a ton of different groups out there that will help you get licensed for a fee, training, study guides, and things like that. I don't know, years ago I used the old Gordon West books, and I think they're still available. When I upgraded to Extra, I used ARRL books and QRZ practice tests. So anyway, so I'm going to give you information strictly off ARRL, and any other avenue that you want to approach on trying to get a license, just be sure to research it good. Okay, right now, ham radio has got 3 types of ham radio licenses. You got your technician, your general, and amateur extra class. The technician class license is the entry-level license, and this test requires you passing a multiple choice question test. Excuse my language, I'm a little tongue-tied today. 35 questions on radio theory, regulations, and operating practices. This license gives you access to all amateur radio frequencies above 30 megahertz with some limited privileges on HF, which will be the old novice phone portion of 10 meters, 28.3 to 28.5, and some CW, very small segments of CW and some other bands. And of course, CW and the 10 meter band. This is a real popular license. I see a lot of new hams starting out with this. Honestly, I kind of wish they had kept the old novice tech route for this reason. When I got licensed in 91, you start out as a novice. and you had to learn 5 word per minute Morse code. I think it was a 25 question test. And it did not give you any privileges above 30 megahertz. You had your voice privileges at 10 meters and CW privileges in small portions on several other bands. I loved it. And it gets, everybody had to start out on if you had to start out on HF. Getting your tech license was kind of the next level license to go to, which give you something to shoot for. Am I happy they dropped CW on the higher licenses? Yes, I am. That's the only thing that kept me from upgrading all these years. I explained in one of my earlier videos, for hearing issues kept me from learning CW. That's fine. I ain't going to go in there no more. But I think if they had kept the novice class license and kept the 5 word per minute, because just about anybody can learn. If I can learn 5 word per minute, anybody can. That would have given more people starting out in HF and then getting into the VHF part, which, not knocking it. You're a ham radio operator. If your budget or what you want to do lies in the VHF spectrum, there were some hams years ago that stayed mainly in VHF. That's great. But I do think a lot of these new hams are missing some fun by not trying to get at least something up on HF. The next license is the general class license. The general class license grants some operating privileges on all amateur bands and all operating modes. This has a 35 question test also. So general class, you get a little bit of everything. All right. Extra class license conveys all available U.S. amateur radio operating privileges on all bands, all modes. Anywhere it's a ham band, you can operate on it. It's a 50 question exam, and it gets into some pretty technical stuff. So you got to really do a lot of studying. In fact, first time I took extra, I wasn't ready for it, but I took it anyway, and I failed it. Didn't miss it by much, but I knew what to work on when I went back and took it the second time. Now, ARRL offers all kinds of study guides for each license class. Plus, they will give you information that goes along with the license. And I recommend you use something like that other than just going to a site. And QRZ is another great site. They've got technical information, license information on there, but they also have a code test generator where you just sit there and take code tests. And it'll tell you when you pass or fail. And just there are multiple choice questions, and a lot of people will take that just to memorize them. You can pass tests doing that. I recommend you get some books, though. Use the study manuals. If you don't want to use ARRL manuals, if Gordon West are still available, his were good. He used to be in the W5YI group. I don't know if they're still available or not. I don't think they are. But you do a search online for ham radio licensing help, and you'll find there's all kinds of groups out there. Lots of YouTube videos related to it. But the ARRL has always been kind of the standard on that stuff. They do have license manuals available, and that's what I would suggest. Wholeheartedly suggest that. I see a lot of people asking questions, and there's no dumb questions. But one thing I urge all of you to do before you get a radio, get a license. Pass your test, and then get a radio. It's real easy to do. A lot of people, I just bought a UV5R. How do I program it for GMRS? Well, that's not really supposed to be programmed for GMRS. You need to follow the rules that go along with ham radio. All right. A lot of us started out in CBs. I started out in CBs back in high school days. And there is a lot of things that CBers believe as far as procedural and functionality of radios and antennas that they still believe to this day. And I wouldn't try to convince them otherwise, but that you'll find out in ham radio is not necessarily right. Ham radio will teach you the right way to build an antenna, the right way to figure a coax, dipole, and everything under the sun that related to it. Teach you how the atmosphere propagates your signal on different bands, because every band propagates differently. And it's just a lot of information in there to absorb. But I do not recommend buying a radio and then trying to get a license, because the temptation to talk on it's going to be too great. And if you broadcast in an amateur frequency without a license, you have actually broke FCC federal law. And if you continue to do it, ham radio operators will DF you, direction find you, and figure out where it's coming from and call the FCC. It's happened a bunch, because it's called part of the self-policing of our bands. I've never done it. I've never had a problem with it. I'm living in a rural area. Everybody I know that's a ham is a licensed ham. So it's real easy to follow the rules. It's too good a hobby not to follow the rules in. So I'm not going to tell you not to put a CB in your shack if you got a ham shack going. Ain't nothing wrong with that. 7 CB band is the old 11-meter ham band that was taken away from amateur radio back in the 60s to form Citizens Band, to give I think it was originally set up for business owners to have a way to communicate with a reasonable, controlled radio, and it just turned into what it is today. Nothing wrong with CB, not a thing. I'm still considering putting one in my shack. I just hadn't found one I wanted yet. Would be the 10-meter band opening. It's just another way to communicate in an emergency. But I recommend amateur radio. The equipment is cheaper than it's ever been. Information is out there better than it's ever been. Get your license. Check out the ARRL website. They've got a great website that'll talk you through the whole thing. If you live in an area that you need information about a ham club, you can look them up online, look up ham clubs in your area, and you'll find information out, and they've all got a contact info with them. I know before COVID hit, I believe a local club about 50 miles west of me was actually holding classes one night a week to help people pass their tests, learn ham radio and pass their tests. Don't just memorize the questions. Try to learn from it. There's things you'll learn in there that you'll be able to use in making your own antennas. So just stick with that. And if all else fails and you can't find any information in your area, KB5MIQ is my call sign. I'm on QRZ. My email address is posted. Feel free to email me. I've already had one ham email me with some questions. I'll try to help you out any way I can. That's what we're here for. I don't like to see people get run down in this hobby for asking questions. Because if you don't ask a question, you're not going to learn it. Anyway, I hope that covers the licensing for everybody. I'd like to see some more people get into this hobby. Just remember, operate within the rules. Be a good operator. And like in some earlier videos where I talked about getting DX contacts, getting on the air, the first thing to do is just listen. Just once you get licensed, hook your radio up and listen. Now, a lot of people say, well, what if I get a radio before I get my license just to listen? Well, as long as you just listen, there's nothing, you're not breaking any laws monitoring at all. But you need to remember this when you're making your transmissions, and you'll learn this in I think in your very first test in the technician class. Anything you say on the air can be subject to be monitored by anybody, the government or anybody. It doesn't have the same rules that a landline telephone has. If you make a broadcast, it's subject to be heard by anybody. So just remember that when you get on this hobby and get on the air. Like I said, listen. I've been in ham since '91, and when I get on here, I listen. If I start first hearing the DX contact, unless I get lucky and hear him real loud the first time he calls CQ and jump in there right then, I usually listen to him for 10 or 15 minutes. And listening helps me pick out how he's taking calls. Anyway, I got a little off track of the license video. Just remember, technician, general, extra class. And all you guys that are going tech, don't forget, you still have HF force privileges on 10 meters. And the 10-meter band is getting better and better every day. You're going to miss a lot of fun if you don't try to get something up on 10 meters. Even if it's one of those Ranger or Uniden 10-meter mobile rigs and a dipole. Back in the last sunspot cycle in the 90s, when my HF rig was down, I used a 25-watt Ranger single side band mobile and a wire dipole and worked Japan. So it can be done. You don't have to spend a lot of money to get into it, but get your license. If you got any questions, shoot me an email. Hope everybody enjoys the videos. Thank everybody who subscribed to the channel. We're over 100 finally. Made the 100 mark. I think we're about 113 with this video subscribers. Thanks to all the subscribe. If you like what I'm doing, leave me a comment, leave me a like. If you got any questions or don't like what I'm doing, or if you got a suggestion, I like it when people give me suggestions for videos. I really like to research stuff and try to help people out with this hobby. KB5 MIQ Big Boy 73.